Hello everybody, a joyous new year to you all. I'm doing a different approach here today. I'm looking at Ghost Babel and Portable Ops today, but I decided to split both games into two videos, that way you can immediately access the game you really want to hear about, in case you have no interest in Ghost Babel, want to hear about Portable Ops, and vice versa and all that. There's one thing these two have in common though. Besides being handheld, okay, that's two things. There's two things these have in common. They're handheld and weren't directed by Hideo Kojima. He was a producer for both games, but wasn't the one in charge. Ghost Babel was directed by Shinta Nojiri. He was an assistant director for Policenauts and helped construct the script for Sons of Liberty, Snake Eater, Guns of the Patriots, and the Acid series. Metal Gear Ghost Babel was Konami's effort at bringing Metal Gear to the Game Boy Color, released between Metal Gear Solid and Sons of Liberty. Japanese and Europeans know it as Ghost Babel, but we here in America know it as Metal Gear Solid. That was probably to bring up sales. MGS was a big name for the PlayStation. All they had to do was add a little Solid there and people would eat it up. I never played this one until this review and it wasn't cheap. Sometimes I just want to travel back in time to my younger years and convince myself to grab some of these games when they're fresh off the market. I remember thinking about this one too. I love the PlayStation game, but when I saw this on the Toys R Us shelf, I thought, Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color? Nah, I already have it on the PlayStation. The Game Boy Color can't do 3D games and voice acting. Now where's my Pokemon Gen 2? Well, I hope you're happy past me because I shelled out a pretty penny to get this son of a bitch. So, let me find some AA batteries around here so I can get this party started. Why is it always the battery covers that are the first thing to go on these things? Now this is a little interesting. Ghost Babel isn't a canonical Metal Gear story. It's set in an alternate timeline, 7 years after the original Metal Gear on the MSX. The events of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake and Metal Gear Solid never happened, and I suppose if this were canon and important in the grand scheme of things, we'd have a chain of memories predicament here, and that would make me sad. So a United States transport plane en route to South America is suddenly hijacked by a rebellious group known as the Gindra Liberation Front, which I'll be referring to as the GLF from this point on. Inside the plane was a new Metal Gear prototype, and the general of the GLF, Augustine Egweban, plans to use it to accomplish victory in a civil war he's currently facing. He's also got a thing against American peacekeeping troops butting into his affairs, and wants to use the weapon to scare them off. I think that's what he's trying to do. Roy Campbell pays Solid Snake a visit in Alaska, and you see where this is going, right? He pulls him out of retirement to take care of the problem. Fucking hell, even in an alternate continuity, Snake isn't allowed to retire. And the man is hesitant at first, but changes his mind when he learns from Campbell that the GLF fortress is located precisely where Outer Heaven used to be. It looks like a dog head. Does anybody else see a dog head here? I'm not the only one, right? And with a new team by his side consisting of Campbell, Mei Ling, mercenary expert Weasel, and the CIA agent Brian McBride, Snake is dropped off via plane to infiltrate the GLF fortress and destroy Metal Gear. A US Delta Force team is also sent in with Snake, but almost as if Snake is the main character or something. They're quickly killed off screen during the mission, with the lone survivor being a woman named Chris Jenner, who eventually teams up with Snake to finish the mission. But the GLF is packing some serious firepower in the form of the Black Chamber, an assembly of highly skilled soldiers that are eager to hunt down and kill Solid Snake. And thus throughout the sneaking mission, Snake takes on more members of the Black Chamber the closer he approaches the GLF fortress. This is Metal Gear though, so let's sink deeper into this rabbit hole. Black Chamber is revealed to be a former United States unit that was meant to be a second Foxhound, taking over secret Black Op missions after the original Foxhound became too famous for their accomplishments in the first Metal Gear title. 2 years prior to this game, during a mission to retrieve a Metal Gear stolen by terrorists, Black Chamber was betrayed and mercilessly gunned down by the United States under orders from an entity known as Anonymous, who didn't want to risk the existence of Black Chamber and Metal Gear going public. They used Foxhound to do the job, which was under the command of Colonel Campbell at the time, acting on false information. Black Chamber vows revenge against Foxhound, the United States, and Anonymous, intending to use the new Metal Gear's nuclear capabilities to kill millions. And their goals don't quite mesh well with what the general of the GLF has planned with Metal Gear. I mean, this guy just wants to win a civil war by means of overkill and get the United States out of his business. But both need to work together to get Metal Gear in their possession. And if that wasn't crazy enough, we soon learned from the general after taking him out that Outer Heaven's existence 7 years ago was all part of an exercise called Project Babel, which was a plan to extend the United States' influence across the globe with the help of Metal Gear and make them the #1 superpower. But Big Boss going rogue placed a damper on that until Solid Snake intervened. Kris Jenner is revealed to be an American spy sent to retrieve and destroy all data linking Outer Heaven to the United States, but fails to pull through when she begins to feel sorry for Snake and everything he's been through. The identity of Anonymous turns out to be John Parker, the Chief of Staff for the United States Army, also the one who sent the Delta Force team to the GLF, and Kris Jenner to retrieve information on Project Babel. John Parker evidently had a serious grudge against a man named Steve Gardner, the CIA deputy director, and he blames him for his daughter's suicide. We don't see any of this. Steve Gardner was the one who funded the creation of Metal Gear and Outer Heaven, as well as being the person in command of Snake's infiltration mission. His ultimate plan was to use Snake to unknowingly eliminate any evidence of Metal Gear and then kill him afterwards. Look, there's a lot I'm not covering here because this gets pretty deep. Ghost Babel can be summarized as two people, namely John Parker and Steve Gardner, playing a massive game of chess using the United States, Foxhound, Snake, Metal Gear, the GLF, and the Black Chamber as game pieces. They're the true villains of this plot, and Ghost Babel mainly serves to establish just how selfish these two are, but here's the problem. These two are never seen. Ghost Babel ends with Metal Gear being destroyed, Black Chamber and the General are defeated, the United States is free of nuclear threat, and after learning the truth about the whole conspiracy, Snake, with Kris Jenner by his side, vows to make Parker and Gardner pay for playing with people's lives. It's all set up for a huge climax that never happens, and thus there's no satisfying payoff. Let's start with the Black Chamber. They could be seen as a parallel to the rogue Foxhound unit from Metal Gear Solid, but that's where the similarities end. I don't find most of these guys very interesting because they ultimately don't matter. They're overshadowed by two people we never meet. I guess I'm supposed to feel bad about them given the shit they've gone through, but given their upbringing or total lack of character development like in Pyro Bison's case, there's no connection. And guys like Slasher Hawk, I thought they had something going for him. He just sounds like a guy who had a shitty life because of racial complications, but he's killed off with no real closure because the Black Chamber are not the big villains of Ghost Babel. The same could be said about Viper, the leader of the Black Chamber. He's the one I had the most interest for. His unit was betrayed, he lost his arm and had it replaced with a robotic prosthetic, and he wanted to avenge his comrades, but his mind had clearly snapped from all the trauma and felt that John Parker, as well as the whole United States, was responsible. It's tragic. Maybe this guy wasn't so bad in his earlier years, but now he wants to kill millions with nuclear weapons because of what some asshole did. But his deranged solution makes him the villain Snake must stop for the sake of innocence. This feels like the beginning of an ongoing story. Snake versus Parker and Gardner, which is like Snake versus the Army and the CIA, a major national conspiracy, but it's cut short because sequel to Ghost Babel was never made. It left me wanting because I wasn't satisfied with what transpired here. Ghost Babel as a standalone has one giant loose thread in the form of Parker and Gardner, the ones responsible for this whole thing. With no resolution on that matter and nothing to follow up afterwards, Ghost Babel feels anticlimactic. Imagine Fellowship of the Ring with no Two Towers or Return of the King. That's what it feels like to me. It's ambitious for a Game Boy Color game, and I will no doubt compliment that. I just wanted some self-contained elements to make it satisfying on its own merits, because the Black Chamber sort of falls short as villains. Well, maybe they thought it was unnecessary to start an alternate storyline with everyone's minds in the upcoming Sons of Liberty. I guess we'll never know given how, things are nowadays. It's 8-bit in appearance and on a tiny little device, but Ghost Babel is a Metal Gear game through and through, make no mistake. And this includes dialogue going as long as they would in console games. I was shocked about that. The opening, before even starting the game, is about 14 minutes long. A Game Boy Color game that has a 14-minute opening. So this is similar to my complaint with Snake Eater 3D, but Ghost Babel doesn't have many handheld conventions going for it. This game hopes you're playing in the house rather than on the road, and it doesn't leave much opportunity to take a pause. I'm not saying Metal Gear can't work on a handheld, but you just can't take the concept and place it on a different device without designing around it. Gameplay, it gets a little better about that. Scenarios are broken up into stages now. It helps you gauge your progression, and since you're able to save your progress at any time thanks to Mei Ling, pausing during game time isn't so much a problem. Ghost Babel is pretty much Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake for the Game Boy Color. I could save you time just by telling you to go to my game summary on the Metal Gear Saga video, but I can still quickly summarize here. You got the top-down perspective, the radar showing enemy locations, and you can crawl on the ground and under things. You're now capable of moving in 8 directions, an awesome addition if you ask me. Movement is very fluid, and the added diagonal directions let you find shortcuts through enemy routes and all the areas you're sneaking around in. You're also able to hug against walls now like you could do in Metal Gear Solid, but I didn't find this necessary on a 2D plane. The guards had peripheral vision like before, but the design of the GLF Fortress is very broad, and the overhead perspective lets me see up ahead already. The only major problem I had was with the fucking dogs. They're so damn fast and persistent, but thankfully only used in 1 or 2 major areas. But look at this, running in a bush maze with a bunch of dogs on my ass is like I'm playing fucking Pac-Man. This game doesn't do much new in stealth, the weapons you can use, and the threats you face. Unfortunately, because of the hardware, it also brings back those shortcomings involving item management and the like I suffered from in Metal Gear 1 and 2. The keycards stack at the very least, so I don't have to fumble with the select button and the D-pad too often when opening doors, but it's still an ongoing pause fest when equipping other items. I also noticed that Ghost Babel is the most puzzle-driven Metal Gear game that I've played so far, and I welcome it. There's nothing wrong with a little brain teasing now and then. You got a puzzle involving finding the right pattern to open these 5 doors, a bizarre conveyor belt maze with cardboard boxes and finding the right pathway, and this shimmying puzzle near the end that makes no goddamn sense. Apparently Snake can't turn a tight corner when hugged against the wall. Why can I only go in a straight line during these parts? You see, I'm only looking for the right way to go, and now I gotta turn back because that right there is a no Snake zone. This isn't a bad game really, it's just more of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, a game I recommended if you recall. They were able to squeeze a game like that into a Game Boy Color cartridge, and that's cool. There's even over 180 VR missions to give you more to do after the game ends. It's not the end of the world if you miss out on this one. It's not tied to any of the games because of its alternate continuity, and it's nothing you can't already experience in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, besides the 8-directional movement. That was a great add-on. It's about as good as Metal Gear 2 in my eyes. Not exactly what I would call a starting point, but still a decent game. You die-hard fans would definitely want to give it a try as long as you're willing to shell out above average prices for it. It's no Shantae, but it's still a bit pricey. I'm bummed that the story wasn't as fulfilling as it could have been, and that's the most disappointing thing about this. It's the plot that's usually the driving force of a Metal Gear game. It was too big for one title, I think, but a continuation is very unlikely at this point, and Ghost Babel unfortunately suffers as a result. And with that said, if you plan on watching both videos, I'll see you guys for the portable ops portion of the 2-parter immediately following this. If not, then I guess I'll see you guys for Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots for the PlayStation 3. With all that said, thank you guys for watching, have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care. Or see you soon.